Hey everybody, hope you guys are doing well. So recently I've been watching a lot of competitive Pokemon battles online and playing a Pokemon Let's Play, and also uploading some of my old videos from 2014. So all of this has got me really interested in Pokemon again, and I've decided to try out the current competitive metagame. So I have downloaded Pokemon Showdown again. I've watched some battles this weekend trying to get back into the swing of things a little bit, and I put together some teams that I think should be pretty fun to play and hopefully pretty successful as well. So I made three teams, and the one I'm going to start with is maybe not the one that's the strongest, but it's the one that I think will hopefully be the most fun, and who knows, maybe it'll actually be pretty good as well. So I figured I would take this first video and start with an introduction to the team. So I decided to start with my favorite Pokemon, which is Dragonite. And Dragonite has the ability Multiscale, which is an amazing ability. Multiscale means that if Dragonite is at 100% HP, then it will take half damage from any attack. Um, so when I last used a Dragonite, I gave him a Choice Band, and Choice Band Dragonite with Extreme Speed was really effective as a revenge killer and a late game sweeper. But I found myself pretty much always using Extreme Speed with him. I didn't really have a chance to use Outrage or any of my other attacks. So for this team, I want to try something a little bit different, and it's a new item I haven't used yet called Weakness Policy. And what this does is when the Pokemon holding it is hit by a super effective move, it doubles their attack and special attack. It raises them both by 2 stages. So it pairs really well, at least in theory, with Dragonite's multi-scale ability. So we're going to give that a try, see how it goes, and I might switch the item. I might switch all these moves, ability, item, probably not the ability, but as we go. But I figure for now we're going to start with this and see if this strategy works out. As far as attacks, I'm going to give him Outrage, which is my favorite attack. It's a 120 base power Dragon type attack. It locks you into it for 2 to 3 turns, but my intent is to use Dragonite as a late game sweeper and just Dragon Dance and Weakness Policy, and then use boosted outrages to take out everything that doesn't resist it. And the goal of the rest of the team is going to be to get rid of all the fairy types and steel types and other bulky Pokemon that might survive an earthquake, outrage. The other move for coverage is going to be Earthquake. It pairs pretty well with Outrage. There are only a few Pokemon that resist both, like Skarmory and Celesteela. I'm going to give him Roost because Roost also pairs well with Weakness Policy. This is the move that I've been pondering the most. I might switch it out for another coverage move like Thunder Punch or Fire Punch. Maybe if I give up Weakness Policy for Fly MZ, I might switch it to Fly. Or even Extreme Speed, but we'll see how it goes. And then, of course, Dragon Dance, which is my favorite status move because it will boost Dragonite's attack and speed. So the idea here is to switch in something that Dragonite resists, like maybe a fighting type attack. Then as your opponent switches to a counter, use Dragon Dance. And then if their counter is going to use a ice type attack or a rock type attack, I can use Roost. That'll bring Dragonite back up to 100% if he wasn't there already, and also get rid of Flying type, which might increase his chances even further of surviving an ice type attack from, say, a Greninja or a rock type attack from a Landorus. Um, and then that will hit weakness policy, although I guess the rock type wouldn't, so I have to be careful there. The ice type still would, though. Um, and then hopefully Dragonite would have 3 attack, +3 attack, and +1 speed, and just be able to sweep from there. So that's the goal. I was looking for a Mega Evolution that would pair really well with that strategy. And it turns out that Mega-Pinsir actually has a lot of the same counters to Dragonite. So I'm going to go with Mega-Pinsir. I've never used one before. Actually, I haven't even thought about Pinsir that much in a long time. But it's Pokemon I've always kind of liked. I've always had a soft spot for because the first game I ever played was Pokemon Blue, and I've always sort of liked the Pokemon that were exclusive to Pokemon Blue, like Pinsir. And it's actually one of the Mega Evolutions that I kind of like. It makes sense. He has wings now and little horns on his, or little spikes on his horns, and it seems like a natural evolution to Pinsir. And he also gets a really cool ability in Aerialate, which makes all of his normal attacks flying type, so it gets stabbed then, because Pinsir or Mega Pinsir is now bug and flying type. And also gives them a 20% boost. So as far as moves go, I'm going to give Pinsir Return, which becomes flying type and is a nice Space 102 power attack. Close Combat for coverage. The other option is to use a ground type move, like I guess Earthquake, but I'm going to end up with 3 other ground type attacks on my team, so I figure I'll go with a fighting type attack for coverage on Pinsir. Quick Attack because I need priority, and again, it gets the boost from Aerialate, and then Swords Dance because a Mega-Pinsir after a Swords Dance is very, very scary. I didn't mention Natures or EVs yet. For Dragonite, I'm going to go with a Jolly Nature to make sure he outspeeds even more Pokemon, since Dragonite isn't too fast, even after a Dragon Dance. There are a lot of really fast Pokemon out there these days, and Choice Scarf users as well. So I want him to be as fast as possible. And 252 attack, because obviously might as well go with max attack, and then just the last 4 in defense. Um, Pincer is going to be very similar. Jolly, 252 attack, 252 speed, and 4 defense. So Pokemon that wall both Pincer and Dragonite are Steel types. So the perfect next addition to the team was Magnezone. Magnezone can trap in and kill the vast majority of Steel types that would cause trouble for Dragonite and or Pincer. It's basically the idea of this team is to use most of the team to kind of soften up the enemy teams, get them ready for a sweep, and then whatever wall or counter they have to Pincer slash Dragonite, hopefully one of them can weaken it enough that the other one can then have a free sweep. So Magnezone really complements that really well. It has the ability Magna Pull, which means that Steel types cannot switch. So you can't just switch to a counter, you have to stay in. The downside is that they will see Magnezone on the team preview, so I'll have to be a little strategic there. I'm going to give Magnezone Stellium Z. That's another one I'm not super sure of, but I don't have another Z crystal on the team, so I'll give it a shot. And Smoggin mentioned the strategy of using a Stellium Z boosted Flash Cannon, which I guess becomes Corkscrew, Overdrive, or something like that, to take out bulky ground types like Gliscor or Garchomp or Landorus-Therian. So we'll see how that goes. For a primary stab attack, I'm going to go with Thunderbolt. That'll be really good against Celesteela or Skarmory. Hidden Power Fire will be great for Ferrothorn and Scizor. Although Scizor, I don't know if it's typically taught like Superpower for Magnezone and other Steel types. I'll have to look that up. Volt Switch, because I really love moves that give you momentum like Volt Switch and U-Turn do. And then, of course, Flash Cannon for another stab attack and for that Stellium Z boost. I thought about giving Magnezone Thunder Wave because I don't really have a lot of status on this team, but I figure we'll start with these 4 moves. I really liked all 4 of them, and then if it ends up being, if I don't end up using one of them, then I might switch it out for Thunder Wave a little later on. So that's the main offensive core. 2 strong physical attackers and a strong special attacker. So I looked at this and I realized let's go with another strong special attacker. And I wanted to choose another Pokemon that really complements their weaknesses and strengths really well. So Magnezone and Dragonite, for example, are really nicely balanced because all of the types that Dragonite is weak to, Dragon, Rock, Fairy, and Ice, are resisted by Magnezone. And the types that Magnezone is weak to, namely Fighting and Ground and Fire, are all resisted or immune by Dragonite. So that's a really nice balance. So I'm going to go with Heatran, which is a Pokemon that, yes, is very overused, but it's a Pokemon I've used before, and I actually didn't like Heatran that much when it first came out, not really sure why, but it's definitely grown on me as a Pokemon, and it's definitely very powerful and very useful. So I'm going to have Heatran as my other special attacker, along with Magnezone, who's more of a steel counter than a all-out attacker. Heatran has the ability Flash Fire, which is really great because it makes it immune to fire attacks, which otherwise both Magnezone and Pincer are weak to, so it's a really good switch into incoming fire moves. And it also boosts the power of its fire moves if it happens to be hit by one. So it makes my opponent really cautious about using a fire attack against Magnezone or Pincer. So I'm going to give my Heatran Choice Specs, which is a little unusual. You don't really see Heatran too much with Choice Specs. Usually you see it as bulky with leftovers or with a Fire Z Crystal, or possibly even Choice Scarf. And I might switch to Choice Scarf. Last time I played with Heatran, I gave him Choice Specs, ended up being a little slow for my taste, so I switched to the Choice Scarf. But I really want to see how much damage I can do with a modest Choice Specs Overheat. I've done some damage calcs, and it's a lot. Even things that resist it take a ton of damage, more than half. And it can one-shot things like Gliscor or Landorus-Therian. It can do like 80% to a Garchomp, which resists it as long as it's not invested in defense. So it's a really powerful attack. It'll probably miss at all the times when it's really going to make a difference, but hey, let's give it a shot and see how it goes. Because my goal is going to be to have Heatran switch into something that does not want to stand against Heatran, and then use Overheat on the switch in. I don't really want to keep Heatran in more than that. I'm going to give it Flash Cannon because it's a really good coverage move, and it can help out for some Fairy types that might give Dragonite some problems. I'm going to give Heatran Earth Power, which is really for other Heatran, and maybe Tapu Koko as well, although it would also take a lot from an Overheat. Um, Although I don't know, I guess Tapu Koko, I don't know if they have, I think usually they run Hidden Power Ice. They probably wouldn't have anything to counter a Heatran, so maybe I could stay in, take an attack, and then Earth Power, I don't know. We'll figure that out as we go. And then Ancient Power, which is really just for Volcarona, and Mega Charizard Y. So it just was a fourth filler move. We'll see how it goes. And who knows, maybe I'll even get one of those nice stat boosts from it. But being choice spec, it really wouldn't matter too much. As far as EVs go, I'm going to, of course, max special attack. I want to go with max speed so I can still outspeed some things, although I might switch that to HP. I was kind of on the edge there. And the last 4 points into defense. So we have our 4 attacking Pokemon. Now I need 2 defensive-oriented Pokemon. For my, I guess we'll call it, I guess I kind of have a physical defensive one and a specially defensive one, although my specially defensive Pokemon is really more of a mixed wall. But for my physical defender, I'm going to go with Landorus-Therian. Yes, it's very overused, just like Heatran. But Dragonite's kind of underused. It's a borderline Pokemon, and my 6 is going to be underused. So I feel like I've gotten some leeway there. I don't want to use a team of all 6 super OU Pokemon, but I feel like I have a good balance between strong overused Pokemon and then also ones that require a little more creativity. So Landorus, I'm going to go with a pretty typical bulky Landorus set. I'm going to give it the Rocky Helmet because I think that'll be really nice to rack up some extra damage on the opposing team. A lot of my team, when I did the damage calcs, they'll live with like 12-ish% of their HP, so having the Rocky Helmet would really make those safe one-hit knockouts. So if something attacks Landorus and then later is attacked by Dragonite or Pincer or Heatran, then that would be ideal. It'll also be really good against opposing Landorus who might use U-turn to switch out, or even Tapu Koko. I'm going to give it 252 HP, 112 defense, and 144 speed. It's just a spread that was based from the recommendations from Smogon, and an Impish Nature, which is plus defense and minus special attack. So that plus Intimidate will make Landorus a really good physical wall. It also is really good typing too. And again, the typing synergizes pretty well with my team. Yes, I now have 3 Pokemon that are weak to ice types, 2 of which are doubly weak to ice types, but Heatran doubly resists it, Magnezone resists it, and our 6 is also going to resist it. So ice types are really going to be hit or miss here. It's also weak to water, and so is Heatran, but Dragonite does resist water, and we'll get to the last Pokemon in a second. And I think those are Heatran's only 2 weaknesses. So pretty good typing. So Earthquake and Stone Edge are going to be its attacking moves. Earthquake because it's a great stab attack, and Stone Edge because besides Ancient Power, I didn't have any rock attacks, and I feel like Zapdos might give my team some trouble, so I'm going to go with Stone Edge, even though I don't think Zapdos typically carry Hidden Power Ice. Some might, but I think they typically carry Discharge, Heat Wave, Roost, and Defog. Speaking of Defog, I'm going to give Landorus Defog because that's actually the main reason I chose Landorus as a physical wall, is because Dragonite is weak to Stealth Rock, Mega-Pinsir is doubly weak to Stealth Rock, so definitely wanted to have a defogger on the team, and I went with Landorus. I tried to get a spin. The last 2 Pokemon I really spent some time thinking about. I tried to even get a spinner on there, but most rapid spinning Pokemon are just not that good in the current game. The only one that's actually pretty good is Excadrill, and I've never really been a fan of Excadrill. And it's also not too great outside of Sandstorm. So in an early iteration, I actually was thinking maybe I'll use Tyranitar and Excadrill. I even had Garchomp on that team. I didn't have Dragonite at the time, but Dragonite and Sandstorm don't pair well. So anyway, didn't go with that strategy. So I'm going to go with a Defogger. I don't have any entry hazards on my team. I might try to get a Stealth Rock in there somewhere, or I don't know. We'll see. But for now, I'm just going to go with Defog and just say no entry hazards for me, no entry hazards for you. We'll call it even. For the 4th move, instead of Stealth Rock, I went with U-Turn. Pretty typical move because, like I said, I really like U-Turn and Volt Switch and how they can give you a nice leg up on your opponent. As we go forward, I might switch one of those moves for Stealth Rock, Toxic, Protect, but we'll see how it goes. So my last Pokemon is kind of a special wall, kind of just a nice overall well-rounded, bulky Pokemon. And that is Vaporeon, another Pokemon from my old team. So Dragonite, Vaporeon, and Heatran are all pullovers from my previous team, and they seem to work well together. Vaporeon resists ice and fire and water, obviously, which otherwise gives certain members of my team some trouble. It has the ability Water Absorb, which means if an opponent is going to use a water attack on Heatran or Landorus or even Magnezone, they have to, or Pincer. So really, Dragonite's the only one that resists water besides Vaporeon. So it's really nice to have a Pokemon I can switch in and heal up with that incoming water move if I can predict it correctly. I'm going to give him leftovers. It's a pretty standard thing. I might switch to one of those healing berries, but I feel like the constant recovery is a little bit better and actually will synergize well with his move pool, which we'll get to in a second. Um, as far as nature, I'm going to give him a bold nature for max defense. Vaporeon has pretty low defenses, so I'm putting a typical 252 defense, 252 HP, 4 special defense, EV spread. I might switch some of that into special defense since he is kind of my special wall and he's not really too special wall oriented at the moment, but we'll see how it goes. As for move pool, Scald is a great attacking move for Vaporeon. It can burn your opponent, and it's really the only status move on my team. I guess Thunderbolt has a chance to paralyze, but not a very good one. I don't have any ice moves on my team, so I'm really glad that I have Stone Edge, and hopefully I'll have that Steel Flash Cannon or the Overheat to take out Pokemon that otherwise are only weak to ice attacks, or mainly weak to ice attacks. Because I really just couldn't fit an ice move like Icy Wind or Ice Beam on Vaporeon's move pool. I want to give it Heal Bell. It's one of the main reasons I chose Vaporeon over Aloma Loma or whatever it's called, because I don't have room for substitute on either Dragonite or Magnezone's moveset. And paralyzing Dragonite, sorry, not Magnezone, Pincer. Dragonite, Pincer, or Heatran really shuts them down, and burning Pincer or Dragonite also really shuts them down, or Landorus for that matter. So I feel like Heal Bell could be really useful as a counter to that. It's great when your opponent takes all their time putting status conditions on like 2 or 3 of your Pokemon, and then you just Heal Bell away in one turn. It's a great feeling. The last 2 moves are going to be Wish and Protect, a great combo that I think is really underrated. I really enjoyed using it. My last team had 2 Wish Protectors in Vaporeon and Clefable. I actually thought about using maybe Clefable and Toxapex, but then I didn't have a Defogger, so that's why we went with Landorus and Vaporeon instead. So Vaporeon has max HP. That'll allow it to pass really big wishes to my other teammates to keep them nice and healthy, which a lot of teams don't have these days. Once you do damage, they're done. So I feel like that staying power will be really nice for my team, which is otherwise pretty offensively oriented. It also pairs really well with multi-scale. If I can use Wish, and then say I think my opponent's going to use an electric attack, like I don't know, a Thunderbolt from Zapdos or something, I can switch in Dragonite. He takes the Wish, heals up, and now I have multi-scale activated and a fully healed up Dragonite to go. So that's the team. We're going to give it a go and see what happens. Thankfully, we'll start at a low ELO rating, and hopefully we'll have some easy matches. A lot of opponents in the low ELO bracket tend to DC when the game doesn't, or tend to leave and quit when the game doesn't go well. So hopefully it doesn't happen too much. But anyway, I'm going to get things started and see how this goes, and we'll make some tweaks as we figure out what works and what doesn't work and what Pokemon our team really has some trouble with. So hopefully you guys enjoy these battles. I'm going to go ahead and start queuing, and I will see you all very soon.